Say something out loud right now. Anything. You just did the strangest thing any living creature on this planet can do. You pushed air through meat and planted a thought inside someone else's head. No other animal does that, not really, not like this. And here's the cruel part. The sound you just made is already gone. Bone fossilizes, stone survives, ash, footprints, teeth, they last. Speech doesn't. In 300,000 years of human life, not one sentence was ever left behind. Language leaves no fossils. So how do we know when your ancestors started talking? Or what they talked about? We can't hear them. So we do what a detective does with a silent crime scene. We look for traces. 3 clues. The body. Could they speak? The genes. Were they built to speak? And the behavior. Did they act like people who could? Start with the body. And here's the first thing people get wrong. You'd assume we speak because we got clever. Big brain, big ideas, words follow. Only half true. Because the real change wasn't in your skull, it was in your throat. At some point, the human larynx, your voice box, dropped lower in the neck. That lengthened the tube above it, and a longer tube can shape far more sounds. It's why you can make the vowels a chimp simply cannot. Ah, e, oo. Those tiny differences are the raw material of every word you've ever said. But that gift came with a bill. And you pay it every single day. Because when the voice box dropped, your airway and your food pipe ended up crossing, which means food can go down the wrong way. Humans are the only animal that can choke to death while simply eating dinner. Every time you cough on water, that's the price of speech. Think about the trade evolution made. It accepted a way to die in exchange for a way to speak. That's how valuable this was. So the body was rebuilt for talking. But when? For that, we need one very strange little bone, the hyoid. It sits in your throat and it's the only bone in your body that doesn't touch another bone. It anchors your tongue and your voice box. No hyoid, no speech. And in Kabara Cave in Israel, archaeologists found one from a Neanderthal about 60,000 years old. It looks almost exactly like yours, which means the hardware for speech wasn't ours alone. Which brings us to clue 2, the genes. In England, researchers studied a family where, across 3 generations, many members struggled badly with speech, the fine movements of mouth and tongue, and the rules of grammar. They traced it to a single altered gene. The press instantly called it the language gene. That name is wrong, and it matters why. The gene is called FOXP2, and it isn't a gene for language. It's a switch. It turns other genes on and off, shaping the fine motor control your mouth needs to form sound. There is no single gene that gives you words, but without this one working properly, speech falls apart. And then we sequenced Neanderthal DNA and found they carried the same version of FOXP2 that you do. So, the throat, yes. The gene, yes. And still, we cannot say for certain that they spoke, because a body that can speak only proves it was possible, not that it happened. For that, we need clue 3. And this is the one that actually counts. Behavior. Did they act like people who could talk? And the strongest sign of language isn't a sound at all. It's a symbol, an object that stands for something else. Because a symbol only works if 2 minds agree what it means. In Blombos Cave in South Africa, they found a piece of ochre, around 75,000 years old, deliberately carved with a crisscross pattern. It isn't a picture of anything. It isn't a tool. Someone made a mark that meant something. And in the same layers, sea snail shells, pierced and worn as beads. A bead is a message. It says something about the person wearing it, their group, their rank, their story. But a necklace only speaks if everyone agrees on what it says. And you cannot agree on a meaning you cannot discuss. So symbols are the closest thing we have to fossilized speech. There's a second trace too. Some stone tools take a dozen precise steps, in the right order, or the whole thing shatters. Researchers have tested how well people learn that by watching alone versus being taught with words. Words win, and it isn't close. And those same techniques stayed stable across thousands of miles and thousands of years. Something was being passed on, not just copied. So picture the moment we'll never see. A fire, a handful of people, night. One of them talks about the hunt that happened yesterday. That's the past tense, a thing no longer here. Another talks about where they'll go tomorrow. That's the future, a thing that doesn't exist yet. Someone speaks about a person who died last winter, and everyone can see them inside their own heads. That's the trick no other animal can do. Speaking about what isn't there. Fire gave your ancestors extra hours in the dark. Language gave them something to do with those hours. So, could the Neanderthals do it too? They had the throat. They had the gene. They buried their dead. They used ochre. They made glue from tree resin, a process with several careful stages. Many researchers now think they had language of some kind. What we don't know is how rich it was. And that line right there is the true edge of what we know, which brings us to the honest ending. The one most videos won't give you. Language was almost certainly not invented. There was no first word. No moment someone stood up and named the world. It far more likely grew, slowly, over hundreds of thousands of years. From calls to gestures to names to sentences. So gradually that no one alive ever noticed it happening. And we will probably never know exactly when. The evidence burned off into the air the moment it was spoken. That's the strange truth. The thing that made us human is the one thing that left no trace. So think back to the words you said out loud at the start of this. Every memory you've ever shared, every promise, every joke, every time you said I love you, or I'm scared, or come with me, all of it runs on the same invention. A technology built in the dark, around a fire, by people who never wrote a word down and never knew what they were starting. They gave you the only thing that lets you out of your own skull, and you use it every day without noticing. So use it today. Say the thing. They paid for it in blood and breath and 100,000 years of trying.